Test. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Hope you had enough coffee. Now we're having a panel discussion on online content and distribution in today's media landscape. I'll leave the floor to our moderator, Fawzi Rahal, the Managing Director of Flat 6 Lab in Beirut, to elaborate more about the topic and introduce his esteemed panelists. Please join me welcoming Fawzi on stage.
Hello, everyone. While we discuss the topic, may I please ask my panelists to join me on stage? May Abu Ghazali, Head of Marketing at Al Baik, Boye Balogan, Managing Director at Future Tech Media, and last but not least, Ashraf Al Hassan, Digital Marketing Director at Nadic. Please join me. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, we're here to talk about online content and distribution, and unfortunately, over the past 10 years, the ubiquity of content online has only gotten more and more scattered. Brands are struggling to, or are being challenged to be able to position their content in places that their audience can reach. It used to be the days of portals, then it moved to the direct mailers, then social media, and today we have a beautiful mix of all of these channels that work together. To begin with, I just want to quickly have each one of my panelists describe what their entity does and what they do in like a minute or less, please. I'll start with you, Ashraf, next to me.
Yeah.
Your microphone is on that side.
Okay. Can you repeat your question, please?
So, what is Nadic? What kind of businesses do they have? And what do you do at Nadic?
Okay, Nadic, it's an FMCG company. It's a food company, and it's two sections we have in Nadic. One is dairy, and the other one is agriculture.
Can you guys hear him? Can you come closer to the mic?
Yeah. Good?
Yes. Okay.
So we have agriculture and we have dairy. Our product exists in GCC countries, in Jordan and Lebanon. And of course, we are opening a new market for next year, inshallah. So this is in a fast brief.
Did everyone get that? Yes, good. And your role at Nadic?
My role is digital marketing director. I'm handling everything related to digital advertising, marketing, and yes, digital marketing, actually. Yeah.
May?
Assalamu alaikum. I come from Al Baik. Al Baik is a company that's been 42 years in the business. It is a family business, and we are mostly in the western region and started in the central region in the past year. We're looking forward, inshallah, to be expanding further. And as for me, I handle the marketing and CSR initiatives in Al Baik.
And you've been doing that for 11 years, yes?
And I've been doing this
correct?
for 11 years, yeah.
All right. Boye?
Hi, I'm Boye. I'm Managing Director of Future Tech Media. We are a digital solutions business. We're 2 years old, so we're still in the startup phase. What we do is we provide digital solutions, marketing solutions, such as video, content, and other technology, digital technology solutions to advertisers such as this, guys.
And before I begin talking about online content and distribution, I just want to highlight one unique thing about our panelists today. We have specialists in food, and food seems to be quite different in terms of approaching marketing than anything else. We had a really interesting backstage conversation discussing how, as opposed to running and growing and scaling at the highest speed, your objectives seem to be a little bit different. So before we talk about distribution, content creation, and strategies, let's just take a minute and discuss objectives. What are your main objectives as a dairy and agricultural entity, and as an entity that creates food that people love and have been loving for the past 42 years? I'll start with you.
I think, first of all, you have to identify the objectives. I think, yes, I think there's only 3 categories who go to digital advertising. The first category is who's looking for acquisition, and not necessarily for branding, such as Forex companies, because they need the user just to go to their website and register. The second category is they're looking for branding and awareness, the same as us, goods and luxuries. So it's a combine between social media and websites. The first category, which is Forex, he's not interested on social media. He's interested on purely displays, content displays, to grab more users. The third category, which is combined between both, branding, awareness, and acquisition in the same time, such as telecommunications company, because you can go to their website, you can register, you can ask for a service, and I think we are in the second category, which is concentrating on branding and awareness. So after that, when you identify your category and objective, you can after that do the plan for your digital and let's say a proper way to split the budget through social media, sponsorship, and let's say displays. Not like Forex. Forex is purely displays. So yes, and if you want to use social media, you have to create, let's say, a good content to engage, interact with the users. For us, we create like health and wellness content.
Before we get into the content, just if we were to sum up your objectives, you said awareness and branding. Are these your primary objectives as Nadik? From a digital point of view?
Yes, this is the main objective, of course. And I think maybe the same at Al-Baik.
Let's see. Your primary objective, May, what you told me backstage, was not awareness and branding.
No, actually, our primary objective is we consider Al-Baik to be an amana. It is something that Allah has given us, and it's our responsibility to protect it, nourish it, and grow it. So by doing that is through doing a good job and doing it well, and having great responsibility in doing our job well and trying to make sure that our customers are receiving what they are asking for and even more, inshallah. So this is our objective. And
so if you can tell us your values, so clearly your objectives are to adhere to your values. What are those values? Is it increasing sales?
Our values are, no, they're different.
They're different, yes?
Yes. So our values is solidarity. So making sure that in any entity that we work in, and even inside, internally in our business, that we have a solid family and we have a solid community that we work with. Because we consider that every entity, whether governmental or non-governmental or any business that is working with us is a part of the ecosystem, and it's important that we work together. But this is solidarity. The second thing is excellence. So we try to al-itqan in everything that we do, and we try to do it well in whatever we do in our business. We also have community well-being, which is something that is very important and we consider as one of our top priorities. And we've been doing it, alhamdulillah, for 15 years. And the one family, which is being one family and believing that everybody in the community is with us. Finally, طبعا, is ethics. So anything that we do, we go back to our ethics, our religion, to make sure that, inshallah, we do everything with good moral, good ethics, and that is it, basically.
Quite a unique product, I must say. So branding and awareness, excellence, betterment of the community, and ethics. Boy, when brands come to you, what kind of other alternatives of objectives could they come to you with? So we spoke about branding, we spoke about awareness, we spoke about doing good for the community, CSR, and excellence. What other objectives can you mention? How do you help them achieve those objectives?
Yeah, I think we look at our advertising partners in two ways, and it's we try to help them create long-term demand, right? Unfortunately, I think it's possibly to do with the rhythm of the region. We have a lot of advertisers that want to look at the short term, which is fine when you're campaign-based, but what we try and support them with is a long-term approach to building a customer base, which is less advertising and more content-driven, more contextual. more tapped into the values that May mentioned. And that's, that's working with creative agencies to create a narrative that, balances whatever they have as content, whether that's curated, whether that's created, into media positions, advertorials and distribution channels, whether that's social or search or any of the new networks. And, as much as we do, we're trying to push them into kind of the long-term demand space. But, saying that, obviously, we've got short-term campaigns as well, which is about the now. It's about driving incremental sales. It's about driving, short-term margin. And we understand that. So it's a bit of a balance. I think what we add to the picture is not just the solutions to push the brand forward, but, that little bit in terms of strategic guidance, just helping them benchmarking against other advertisers, but also just helping them on this journey.
Okay, so you, in addition to helping them generate sales, creating awareness, you also give them a little bit of an understanding of where they are in the entire space against their competitors.
Yeah, absolutely, and we do a lot of educational sessions as well. And we've got loads of learnings from the UK, from the US. Yes, I know we're different, and they're different regions, but there's so many similarities as well. So we try and bring some of those learnings and adapt them, and if they're not adaptable, then we'll build them from scratch, specific to, Beirut, specific to UAE, wherever it is. But I think the only way we can meet this guy's objectives is to look at long term and help with our solutions to meet in the middle rather than just looking at short term objectives.
Let's elaborate on that. Let's assume I'm Natick, and I'm not trying to sell you future tech media by any chance.
Do it.
But if I'm Natick and my primary objective is branding and awareness, how would you treat my content in a different way than if it were for sales or for any other objective? Can you give us an example of an exercise that can be done to leverage awareness and branding in particular?
Sure. I think it's about creating. Right?
It's about creative.
It's definitely about creating more content and being more spaces that are not just pure advertising. As dominant as the social media players are, they do a great job. We know distribution through Facebook, instant articles, for example. We know distribution through Snapchat, Discover Channel. We see a lot of brands starting to look into that space and partnering with them. So we encourage them to do. Traditionally, every advertiser does paid media.
Okay.
So we encourage
traditionally, every advertiser, but doesn't seem to be a fan of it.
Advertisers.
We're going to talk
so
about
we
that in a
encourage
second.
content creation, and we encourage people to use influencers.
Influencers.
Yes, because we can definitely see a shift away from traditional publishers, and we can see, especially in this region, people actually being more vested in what their tight circle of friends or what a celebrity or even what a micro influencer has to say. And I think those guys are, more credible. They're not selling you anything. They're telling you about their life, and if you relate, then you can follow them. So those spaces are areas that we encourage brands to invest in. Influencers, whether that does a long-term brand ambassadors, or whether that's a short-term burst, even in terms of getting your message out. But also content. We see too many brands work on a campaign-to-campaign basis, and there's no narrative in it. You can't build a long-term plan with them. Fine, we'll take your investments. We'll run campaigns for you. But what did you talk about Ramadan this year? How is that a evolution from the content you're talking about next year? What is the story your customers, are following it, and how are they invested in your brand? So, some agencies, media agencies, call it beyond advertising. I think that's where media is moving into, is investing beyond advertising, investing in more content areas, more influence areas, and even, speaking on another session earlier, even investing in tech that could help their businesses. So just thinking outside the box a little bit, and that's where we hope to add some value.
Okay, Ashraf, going back to what Boy was talking about in terms of campaigns and competitions, how does Natick approach creating competitions? Is this something that's campaigns and competitions in general? Is this something that is a priority for you? Do you believe it brings in the right audience? How does Natick go about addressing that?
Well, to be honest, the first 2 years, the competition was something not necessarily. The only thing which is necessarily was to grab our loyal consumers, because this is your value in the future. And this will give you like a high engagement rate, higher interactions. Actually, usually sometimes we don't have to answer some comments on social media. You'll notice that our loyal consumers, they will do the answering and the conversation. I think this is the biggest value that you can have. After that, if you reach a certain number of, let's say, followers, likes, whatever, we can move. Maybe inshallah next year we will move to a big competitions, creating applications for a certain targeting audience, let's say for kids, maybe for moms. This was the main strategy.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, I think you have to be patient and do it slow. You don't have to rush. You don't have to, let's say, sorry to say, buying, let's say, fake followers. Because at the end, you will not going to get benefit in the long term.
Well, I think Ashraf just mentioned 3 things that now I'm going to throw at you, mate. Maybe not back to back, but the first and most important one that he touched upon was relying on Boye started by saying that you need influencers. And then Ashraf said that sometimes his own fans do the community management, respond to the followers. You have a special case of the fact that when you joined, not when you joined, but when you had when Al-Baik went on Facebook, there was already a pre-existing fan page, and you didn't shut it down, which is not a traditional thing that usually happens, because now you have a page that's really not there. So when Boye is talking about influencers, we see that Al-Baik has a lot of fans that seem to be doing that influencing. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how they behave, what they do, and why did you keep that page?
Why would we shut it down if we have somebody?
Because all brands want to centralize their voice of communication and want to have all the access to the data.
But that person that actually created it is somebody that it came from their heart, and it's talking about the brand, and it has all the things that are actually natural. So I think it's very important that you keep that, because that person has put a lot of time, a lot of investment in order to keep that alive. And we actually contacted that person to see how we can work together in order to see how we can align and see on future plans together.
So do you work with the management of the fan page to collaborate together?
We are not currently doing that, but we have initiated
conversations with them.
Conversations with them, and yes.
Very interesting. And when it comes to the kind of growth that also Ashraf touched upon, he said you have to take it slow. We're not talking about business growth here as much as we're talking about channel growth and content growth. Do you also agree with that same approach?
Yes. We at Al-Baik it's still very early for us in terms of social media. Our most engaging is Twitter. And we consider that as one that we use a lot for comments, for
social CRM, basically.
Yes, so a lot of content that we use, and we manage that content to make sure that we listen to the customers and see what they have, if they have any problems. Responsiveness is a key factor that we look at. How fast do we respond to our customers, whoever is seeking for either information or has any suggestion or even a complaint. In terms of, and we do have fans that usually answer also back, which is quite interesting. I would also like to touch upon investing on technology. So one of the things that we've worked really hard on is we had one of our number one complaints that we've had over the past years, which was a delay in terms of receiving food. And customers were complaining about that. So we worked internally and developed an app that would help improve that part of experience for the customer.
How?
Through a pickup order app. So basically the customer would go on that app and order their food and decide when to pick up their food. So all they have to do is, instead of going to the restaurant and standing in the queue, their order would be ready, and it would inform them when to pick up their food. So they would just go there and have their number already ready, and they would receive the food without waiting. So
it's interesting. Boye, both of our panelists here have kind of discussed slow growth, not a lot of content, which seems to be a unique aspect of food, of the food business in particular, I guess.
Yeah, these guys are very unique.
They're kind of like preaching the opposite of what you generally sell.
Most of our clients, advertisers, I would say a lot more aggressive about the short term. So it's quite refreshing to have you guys thinking about slow burn and being true and being credible to your customer base. And I think it reaps rewards in the long term. So that's very unique. Literally, we were having a conversation about that before. I think the other things that I wanted to add as well is, what you'd find is increasingly we're seeing brands and advertisers becoming their own publishers, right? You know your product so well, you're so invested. It's a family business. It's a business you're very passionate about. And for you to come out with that story, that content you push out, I don't think anyone can do it as well as you. You can use agencies to help you craft it. You can use platforms to help you distribute it. But I think increasingly we're seeing the best brands out there that are growing, and they have a growing customer base as well. They're very authentic. They're very credible. And they're very, very tapped into what they are as a brand, and that kind of shines through the content. And when we use that content in our advertising, it just flies. The engagement rate is brilliant because people believe what you're saying, and because you build from a base of believers as well. So yeah, definitely refreshing.
So do you believe that authentic content kind of trumps frequent content that is less authentic, if I may say, or more marketing based?
Sure, it's a good question. If you look at content now and the way people consume content, right? So we've probably got four big players, right? You've got all the Google content. They've got AMP, which is accelerated mobile pages, which is publishers or website content being put on Google so consumers can access it faster. You've got the content being put on Facebook. So, for example, if you look at Love in Dubai, it's a kind of lifestyle startup. I'm sure you guys are aware. 80% of their content comes from social referrals. And you've got Apple News. That's my number one destination because it's on my iPhone and I just look at content that way. That's great. The only problem with that is, up to an extent, you start looking at the same content, which is kind of driven to you by an algorithm, rather than content you've gone out to source. So there's a bit of balance there, and personally, I like the more credible content. But what we're seeing is mass algorithm-driven content at the moment, and I think there needs to be a nice balance there. We're not all the same. We don't all want the same kind of content. But these platforms are kind of aggregating it in the kind of a algorithm-driven basis, and it's kind of making everything a little bit bread and butter, very bland. You
mentioned Google Accelerate mobile pages. You mentioned Facebook. They can't hear you very well.
Oh, you can't hear me? Better? Yeah? All right.
In all cases, I was just going to summarize what he said. So you mentioned Google Accelerate mobile pages, which is basically publishing directly on Google. The same thing applies to Facebook Instant Articles.
Yep.
You mentioned Apple News as an app that you use. There's hundreds of these content aggregators, whether it's Flipboard, etc., etc. How do you cut through that clutter? By paying money, or by creating really good content, or by a mix of both?
So from a publisher point of view or from an advertiser point of view?
Well, from an everything point of view, right? Because as an advertiser, I need to get that content there. And then as a publisher, that publisher still needs to get their content there and then cater for the advertisers and what they have to say.
Yeah. Quite a long answer to that question, but I would say it's been by unique. Look at it from a publisher point of view, right? So you are at Arabia or the Telegraph or wherever it is, you invest insane amount of money on editors, on writers, on journalists, and this is distributed on platforms that aggregate but don't actually create content, right? And the rev share you get from it is probably very, very low. So the only way you can differentiate yourself is by making really, really unique content targeted to your base. So an example, Financial Times.
Financial Times?
Yeah, Financial Times. 6% of the revenue is from digital subscriptions because you can't get that news anywhere. You just can't get it anywhere. They just don't give that access to you. Another model is, sorry, I'm using UK models here, but it's the Telegraph. So Telegraph has moved to a 20%, 80% publishing model. So 80% of the content is accessible to everyone, and 20% of it, which is a really unique content, is only on a subscription-based model. So I think you've got to be quite clever with it from a publisher point of view. From an advertiser point of view, you've got to go Nike, right? You've got to go Apple. You've got to tell a big brand story that transcends whatever channel you're distributing it through. You've got to go unique. Yeah, I know you guys are not as big as Apple or Nike yet, but you know that story's got to be unique and targeted. You still use these distribution platforms because they're so important. You need Facebook, you need Twitter, you need Google, increasingly Apple and Amazon. They kind of.
Do you really need all these mix in over and above the local? So for example, do I need to go on YouTube and on a shahid.net? Do I focus my content on a particular platform and drive traffic there, or is it really critical today that I'm everywhere all the time?
I think even the partners that you work with use these guys as distribution platforms anyway. So whether you like it or not, you will end up being syndicated through one of the big four. But I think you should have a not private conversation, but a closed, unique conversation with your audience, and whether that's through some kind of branded content with your top influencers, whether that's through choosing influencers that really understand your brand, or whether that's through creating a really unique story that makes people go past the kind of generic platforms and come to you. I think it's really tough for both ends. I think it's really tough for publishers at the moment to monetize that content and get it out. I think it's really tough for advertisers as well, to get beyond the clutter. You look at my Instagram feed at the moment. You'll flip away from a brand. There's so much clutter. Everyone's trying to sell something. And there's so much information now for the end user. So the only way to do that properly is to have a strategy that is a mass. I've got to reach a lot of people, and unique. And that's my point of view. I see a lot of brands doing it very well, especially with programmatic advertising, right? You're talking to so many people. So I definitely think it needs to be two-pronged. It needs to be really unique to your top drivers and your influencers, but also you need to push your product.
Ashraf, before I ask you the kinds of content that you put on your different platforms, I want to quickly ask May, who also has a unique position of really favoring quality over quantity at any given time. And I want to ask you, one of your priorities is not to cut through the clutter. You believe that a good content will cut through the clutter by itself?
Yeah. We believe that if you do your job right and you're authentic and you're transparent, then because nowadays everybody is a creator of content on social media. Everybody is either on Snapchat, Instagram. So content is being created whether you want it or not. It can be negative or positive. So we believe that if we focus on the core values, which is our operations and providing excellence, that would help our loyal customers create content. And I think that this is the most authentic content that you can have. Because pushing content, unfortunately, with some brands, it does not work. It actually backfires because it shows that you're trying too hard. And it could be considered as fake. So that's
again a very fresh outlook. I guess Boy and I are both equally surprised in the approach of these brands. Ashraf, also onto you. The content that's on your website is quite unique. It doesn't really sell products as much as it helps lifestyles. Can you give us examples of what content you have on your website that does that? Microphone again.
Content always is the king. So that's why we create a content to grab more, users, to engage with them, interact with them. It's about health and wellness. We have like health calculators as well. Sometimes we concentrate on a certain product's benefits, because people like to read about a certain product benefits and to understand, where is this made from, for example, what kind of vitamins has. These kind of contents, we realize that it's grabbing more and take attention more for the users and let's say social media platforms. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Before I ask more questions, we're learning a little bit short on time, so I want to check if the audience has any question. I'm going to start checking with the ladies. Any questions from your side? Comments, feedback, surprises, agreements, disagreements? No? Gentlemen? We could not have covered everything. Nothing? Okay, we'll keep going. Let's take this a step back and discuss the actual types of content that are out there. So, we don't want to talk about video versus audio versus blog posts, but I want to start with you, Boy, because you seem to be catering for the majority of clients in addition to food. Does a client come to you and say, here's a video, now please push it for me? Or do they come to you and say, I need a campaign that leverages sales, please come to me with a mix, and then they will produce it?
Yeah, it's interesting. So from our media operations, from our digital solutions point of view, most times we get the finished product.
Okay.
So we get a
TV ad. Commercial.
Yeah, we'll get a TV ad.
I'm sorry.
And that's, and we want to run that on, want to push it through influencers. We want 10-second videos, or Instagram will want, 15-second videos. So you then have to go back and try and, cut this particular TVC to fit digital. But increasingly, we see a lot of our advertisers produce content for the digital platforms. So that's good, that's great. What we're trying to encourage is during the creation stage to actually take a step back and rather than just going to your creative agency, I want a 30-second TVC, is to think outside the box and go, well, can I pro-source this? Right. So pro-source is a term that's kind of just recent in the last 18 months. And it's using smaller production agencies and influencers to produce your content. So traditional TVC will take, I don't know, you guys will know better, 2-3 months. You go do a beautiful shoot in Rio or somewhere in South Africa, and it takes forever. You don't actually know if that's going to work till it goes live, and you do some post analysis. What we're trying to encourage is for you to create more, shorter, and more frequent content. And rather than briefing one big creative agency or production house to produce this, going, well, can I speak to 5 or 6 people that are relevant to my fan base? Get them to pitch to me. And there are a lot of companies that do this. There's a platform called Meet the Makers. So the advertisers get to make content makers in the region, and I like that because it supports the ecosystem. It encourages up-and-coming producers, directors, content writers, and they engage with the brand and they pitch the brand, and they can get live in 2 weeks. It's authentic, it's unique, it's great. So we've seen a lot of that, and more of that would be great. But it's still a TV-dominated mindset at the moment.
May, being someone who always favors quality over quantity, would you be interested in trying out or testing or supporting local talents and creating small pieces of content and pushing that? Would that fit in your strategy? I mean, for any other brand, I think the first thing that I would hear working with them for such a long time is, no, my chicken won't look very good with an unprofessional camera. The lighting is not going to be good. It might not look very appetizing. If we're talking about an FMCG, they'd say my bar of chocolate doesn't work. If we're talking about a hair product, they'd say, oh my God, look at that hair, it doesn't really look good. How do you balance between those, or how would you approach it?
Well, I actually really like the ecosystem style of production, because this is really something that you're actually benefiting the community and helping the people around you too.
You really don't want to sell your product. You just want to help people.
It's not about selling the product. It's not about selling the product. But we had an example where we had an agency that came and pitched for us, and one of the ideas, they were telling us about Snapchat and how we would introduce our content there. And one of the ideas that our team came up was, why don't we just give access of our Snapchat to our customers and let them create the content? At that point, the agency was telling us, no, but there are a lot of restrictions because how do you control the content and all of that? But it's just, again, we're not against the content. It's about the having it something that is truthful and something that we believe in. Because, mashallah, people now are very sophisticated and they know what is pushed and what is truthful and what is authentic. So you don't want to play with your fans and just take advantage of that. And this is something that we really take very critically, and we don't really want to play with that part. So that's basically, it's not.
That is very interesting. Jad, we have a question right here. Thank you. Yes, only one. I was going to ask you a question, but we'll leave it to the audience instead.
Yeah, my question.
توقف تعرف عن نفسك, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Mohammed Al-Sheikh from Khalijiyya.
From Khalijiyya.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm asking about what they can do when sometimes, some influence people like trashing your brand.
Trashing. Okay.
It's like it's pain to do that. If there is better to let it go or try to face it.
Trolling or online trolling, which is somebody trolling you on social media. How do they handle it? How do they? You said
how they can respond.
Okay, so how do you handle trolling online? Anyone? Organized trolling. So somebody has decided to attack your brand online.
That sounds like a corporate attack, doesn't it?
Samsung? Well, I think they trolled themselves. Can you give us an example?
Like when some dairy company, another dairy company, the people talking about it's paying to people to trash this company.
So your competitor is trying to trash you by paying people to troll you, apparently. Okay. How do you handle that? I don't think anybody will touch you because you seem to be the good old. They do?
No.
Okay.
Food industry, it's something sensitive, of course, and you have to keep your reputation in digital marketing. But you have to be careful. You don't have to answer everyone, first of all. Second, the user behavior is different between, you have polite people, you have educated people, you have other products consumers. So you will get this kind of comments, let's say, and I don't think this will be a big issue because this is happening all the time with all companies, I think so. And I think it's happening for Al-Baik also because it's a food industry. You will find it all over the categories, not only FMCG, telecommunication, mobiles, airlines. Yeah.
Boy, quickly.
It's a very good question because an example of trolling all the fake news articles you get on Facebook now goes up, celebrity is dead, and everyone believes it. That's a big example of trolling. I think 2 steps. You've got to be listening to them, so you've got to use some kind of social media listening tool to know when that starts. You don't want to get into the office next day and see that you're trending number 1 for a negative item. I think 2, you've got to have a response in place, whether it's an internal PR agency or external, and you've got to use really, really strong people, spokespeople, whether those are influencers, will kind of counter that, or whether that's, your CEO or your head of department, the strongest, most kind of, PR-friendly face to counter that. But yeah, it's definitely a growing problem.
Well, I'd like to thank my panelists. Thank you, Ashraf, May, and Boye. This has been a breath of fresh air, quite a unique panel, I must admit. Thanks a lot for our audience, and I guess I'll be coming back to moderate another panel in a couple of minutes or 10 or so. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Fawzi. Thanks, Ashraf, May, and Boye. Now, our next presentation is a talk